Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. So, Volkswagen just held their Power Day, their version of Tesla's Battery Day, where they did show us their plans for their electric cars, batteries, charging and energy business for the next decade. So will they, as Herbert D said a year ago, catch up with Tesla and at some point overtake them with what they have just shown us? Well, let's take a look at what they revealed and let's dive right in.
Let me begin with the obvious. E-mobility has won the race. It is the only solution to reduce mobility emissions fast.
So they showed us that they will make one battery to fit all. For 80% of their electric vehicles anyway, and 20% will still be specially made for unique products. They did show that with their new technologies and no longer making battery to modules but batteries to structure as Tesla, will save about 50% of the battery cost as of today. As I understand it, they will not make these battery to structure before 2024 though. And if we are very generous, Volkswagen's battery cost today is probably about $150 per kilowatt hours. So if they will reduce their cost with 50%, we are looking at about $75 per kilowatt hours at best. So that will not be catching up with Tesla, that has about $108 per kilowatt hour today according to Sandy Munro, and Tesla will save about 56% on cost, so they will be at about $48 per kilowatt hour. So Tesla's battery will be about 30% cheaper than Volkswagen, so that is definitely not catching up either. And they also showed that they expect that they will reduce the cost of the investment in battery production of about 30%. But again, with Tesla, we do expect about a 69% reduction in investment per gigawatt hour. So can't really keep up here with Tesla as well. But as we have talked a lot about here on this channel, how many can they make? Well, Volkswagen expect to build 6 gigafactories over the next 10 years. Each will produce about 40 gigawatt hours of batteries, bringing the total of battery production in 2030 to 240 gigawatt hours. And they will start with the first battery factory in 2023. And Volkswagen doesn't expect to have more than 60% of their fleet being BEVs by 2030. And that is even a doubling of their target just a couple of years ago. So this will by no means be catching up with Tesla. 240 gigawatt hours in 2030, and Tesla expect to be at 3,000 gigawatt hours in 2030. And I do believe that the whole battle for EVs will be within the next 10 years. So if we believe both Volkswagen and Tesla that they will reach their goals, Volkswagen will not even be at 10% of the battery level that Tesla will have in 2030. So not catching up with Tesla in any regards when it comes to battery production and price. They did also talk about the end game that was solid state batteries, but the solid state they are talking about is QuantumScape, so nothing new here, just what we already know about solid state batteries from QuantumScape. So as I have mentioned, not something we will see in big scale in this decade, even though they are talking about after 2025, sure, but when and how many batteries can you make of this solid state battery? Well, QuantumScape has said 90 gigawatt hours in 2028. So yeah, nothing that will matter in this decade. But then they did talk about charging, where they did say they would make it as easy as fueling up your ICE car. I hope so. because that is not what we have just seen with Electrify America. But they showed us that in China they will have 15 new EV models in 2025 and a 35% BEV in China by 2025. And they will have the first factory ready in 2023 and one more by 2024. So still a couple of years before they really start to enter the Chinese market with production. And they will also make the new charging infrastructure with the partnership with CAMS. And luckily they expect it to be plug it in and the car will charge, because that is not what people are experiencing in the US. And the charging will be between 120 to 180 kilowatts charging. So that is of course a little bit weird, since they did also use a lot of time talking about how fast their cars can charge with the Porsche and Audi, but they are not making any chargers in China right now that can deliver that speed. So at the end, it really doesn't matter how fast you can make your car charge if you're not going to make chargers that can deliver that charge. What's the point then? They did talk about the 350 kilowatt later on in the show, but that is not what they are building right now and will only cover most of the cities, whatever that means. They have right now 250 charging stations with 1,500 charging stalls. Tesla has already over 6,000 stalls in China. And with the numbers from Volkswagen, we can also see that they only make about 6 stalls per charging station, which in my opinion is also simply not good enough. But they expect here in 2021 to get to 500 stations with 6,000 stalls, so 4,500 stalls in 1 year, where Tesla do expect to make about 10,000 a year, so quite a big difference here as well. And Volkswagen expect to have 17,000 stalls in 2025, where Tesla will probably have double that, but great with more pushing for more stalls. And then they talked about the US. Right now they have 560 stalls in operation and expect to add 800 stations by the end of this year. They did talk about how great the network is and how most of the fast charging we see all over the US today were pioneered by Electrify America. What? Electrify America was only founded in February 2017, and only because Volkswagen was forced to because of Dieselgate. So that was a very cheesy shot there from Volkswagen. Knowing that Tesla started building their supercharging network in September 2012, 5 years before the Dieselgate charging network. So for them to say they have been pioneering for fast charging in the country was a little disgusting. And also knowing that their network is still inferior to Tesla's both in station, stalls and speed, because there are not many that have the 350 kilowatt charging. And they also showed off their customer just plugging in and the car starts charging. Yes, if it's not a Volkswagen car, as we have just talked about in the last news episode with the ID.4. So yeah, the Ford Mach-E does it, yes, but not the ID.4. So again, a bit misleading here. And they talked about all this while they were showing off some pictures of their small 6-stall charging station. Yeah, I did not like this part of the presentation. They became just a little bit too full of themselves and maybe not directly lied, but definitely bended the truth here. And for them to say $2 billion is the biggest investment ever put into a charging infrastructure. Yes, because you cheated and was forced to do it. If I was Volkswagen, I would just have left this part out, because for all of us who knows, this was just a very, very cheap shot. So let's leave that there and say, great, they will continue to expand the charging network both in the US, China and Europe, so that is great. But they did also show how they partner up with different energy providers around Europe for making electricity. And great to see oil companies like BP joining the electrification and starting to make charging stations and stalls in every country they are in collaboration with Volkswagen. So that is pretty cool to see a company like BP starting to make the switch from gas station to electric charging stations. One of the best things about the Power Day was the vehicle to grid, making the car into a mobile power bank. That is very cool. They are not the only ones that will do this, but it's still very cool to see Volkswagen jump on board this as well. It will help people save money on electricity, and it will also help the grid, and it will help with storing all the renewable energy being made, where the excess power that normally is lost can now be filled into electric cars and used later. Volkswagen will start providing cars that will be able to vehicle to grid in 2022. So that was very interesting to see Volkswagen's entry into the energy business, just like Tesla is doing. So that will be very cool to follow and see how all this will work out. And as they said, they hope that one day electricity will be free. I do agree on this one, because as we have talked about many times on this channel, that every home will become an energy maker, and with software like Tesla's Auto Bidder, you will be able to save a lot of money and maybe even earn money on selling your energy in peak hours. So I do agree with Volkswagen on this one, that one day we will have so much free renewable energy that electricity will become free for the end user. So Power Day, well, it clearly shows no, they will not catch up with Tesla. They will not even be close. But it also shows that Volkswagen is really serious about electrification and is pushing much harder and faster than, for example, Ford and GM. So of all the big old OEMs, Volkswagen seems to be the one that is most committed and taking the big steps necessary. But even with all that, if Volkswagen only expects to be a 60% BEV by 2030, I don't expect them to be much bigger than that. Because I believe the race for EVs will be within the next 10 years, especially with the pace that Tesla is expecting. So if Volkswagen will only be at 60% in 2030, I do believe they will be 60% of their current size today. Because I don't think anyone will be buying a new ICE vehicles in 2030. So I don't think Volkswagen still fully understand just how fast this disruption will happen. It will not take more than 10 years. That is my guess anyway. But big important steps for Volkswagen to hopefully survive this big switch to electrify our transportation industry. But if we take Tesla's expectations and Volkswagen's expectation and will believe them both, Volkswagen will in 2030 have about 6 million electric cars, and Tesla will be producing about 20 million electric cars. And Tesla will still have 30% cheaper batteries in their cars, and they will probably be full self-driving. So an interesting event, and they are showing they are trying their best to go electric. But if this is Volkswagen's big push to try to become the world's leader in the electric revolution, well, this will simply not be enough. So yeah, this is not catching up with Tesla, but we can hope this is enough for them to not go bankrupt, but be a bit smaller company in 2030 than they are today when it comes to producing cars. If you want to see the whole event, I will leave a link in the description below. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.